Welcome, everybody. I'm very grateful to be part of Urbanistica podcast today. My name is Tigran Haas. I'm an associate professor of urban planning and urban design at the Royal Institute of Technology and the current guest scholar at the Leventhal Center for Advanced Urbanism at MIT. I also been running a master's program in urbanism studies and the Center for the Future Places at KTH, which was focusing on research on public spaces and urban places. Background is architecture, urban planning, urban design, environmental science, and regional planning. And what we discussed today, Mustafa and I, was a very interesting discussion about in a way, how one in different universities builds programs on urbanism, urban planning and designs, the expectations of the students and what they envision they're going to get in the programs and when they get in reality. How do you build programs? What is the best optimum between practice and theory in different programs? What should they cover? How online teaching is going to influence the coming years now. Are we going to be hybrids or going to be online or will be in place? How faculty members are supposed to teach, what competences they need. Should they stay in their embedded ideas or should they be able to change and transform themselves? And how do you build faculties in a way? It's a huge challenges. And I'm glad I've been able to give some little insights with excellent questions from Staffan. So yeah, I'm very privileged and happy to be here.
Thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica podcast. I am Mustafa Sharif, an urban planner, and you're more than welcome to join my big journey of exploring the making of smarter and more livable cities. Please don't forget to follow Urbanistica on the different social media platforms, and also let's connect on LinkedIn. Big thanks to Urbanistica podcast partner, AFRY. AFRY is an international engineering and design company providing sustainable solutions in the fields of energy, industry, and infrastructure. Are you ready for a new episode? Let's go for it. Hey, and thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica podcast. We have a new episode and we have a fantastic storyteller. I have the pleasure to welcome you back, Tigran, to Urbanistica podcast. Hey, and welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Mustafa. It's wonderful to be here. I like the word storyteller. Storytelling is good, something a favorite of mine.
How are you?
I'm okay. Under all circumstances, right, with the COVID and everything that's happened. And I think I'm like you, an optimist. Maybe you're much more an optimist than I am, but deep down I am. So, and we believe in cities.
Yeah.
So I think we'll discuss it today. A lot of stuff, at least this 2 years has been good for introspection and thinking about things. So let's hope for a better fall in any case.
How was the period during the COVID? Like, was it tough for you?
It was a little bit difficult. I took a little bit care of my parents during that time. They were 80. I unfortunately lost my dad to COVID-19 last April. Thank you. And then depending on there's, I think I read an article recently, and I think I fall into this category of, I forgot what the word was, but it's like it's taken from baseball, long dodgers or something, the ones that are really still carrying masks even today.
Okay,
that are really fearful because we had COVID twice, or then when you had the Delta version and all that for a month, then it's real, see it in close hand. But of course, even with these mutations, one's still a little bit careful of the larger assemblages of people and so on. So, but I think will be this predominating paradigm that we'll have to live with the virus in the coming years. So the vaccines will get better.
So you think that we're gonna still have the virus in the?
Yeah, if you read most of the epidemiologists, what they say now, we're not going to get rid of the Omicron variants in the fall. But if we get these, and I saw that today that the UK has just signed on this polyvalent new vaccine, which is taking care of, I think it's a Moderna vaccine. We'll have to do it with that, but still be a little bit careful for sure until the next pandemic. because this doesn't look all that good.
Let's see if we're gonna survive.
I mean, Mustafa, we destroy this environment so much, so anything is possible.
Punching us back.
It is. It's Mother Nature is saying, okay, now it's payback time.
Yeah. So tell the listener, give us a highlight about you. How would you like to introduce yourself?
A storyteller was a good idea because I finally finished after 10 years my children's book in 2 volumes. And it's like
Wait, reading or writing?
writing. Yeah, it's 650 pages, 2 volumes. It's storytelling about my childhood, 10 years back in former Yugoslavia, because this is where I come from. I was born in Sarajevo, very interesting city. And then when I was very little, we moved to Philadelphia. I grew up in Philadelphia, and then it was, framo tillbaka, back and forward to U.S., former Yugoslavia, because my dad was working on a number of universities as a guest researcher, guest professor. So it was the East Coast, Boston, Washington, Montreal, Canada.
Also about urbanism or no?
No, he was a theoretical physicist.
Okay.
So, and then he went into philosophy of science, and I went to school. And then I studied at MIT in 1986, 87. Then we got back. My mom was working also at MIT on food research, cancer research in the Tannenbaum lab. Later on, she went to FDA, Food and Drug Administration in Washington. Then we came back. Then I graduated started in architectural studies in Sarajevo. And I graduated in Zagreb. I had two diplomas there. Specialization in urban planning and design and urbanism. But I started as architectural design. So I went through the brainwashing and the modernist. My favorite architect is Richard Meyer, which I became well acquainted with. Was supposed to work for him in 1992 in the office. But then because of family reasons, I decided not to go. And later on, we met again it was I might have been 2002. I can't remember. It was the Israeli Architectural Prize, and I was in the committee with 5-6 people, and he was the head of the committee. So it was nice and I wrote an article about him.
Yeah. But why you studied architecture? I mean, you should maybe follow your dad or...
Yeah, I think my dad wanted me to go to study medicine. My mom wanted me to study pharmacy. Could have been in a pharmaceutical company now. And I used to draw a lot as a kid. And then 4 of my uncles are architects.
Okay.
So, you can say maybe there was something that I inherited, maybe. And then I went into it. And I didn't regret it. I'm not sure if I would do the same thing now with all, what's going on, but who knows? It's different perspective. And but then I realized after 3 years of studying, there's something, as you say, Mustafa, there's something more than objects. There are spaces in between and how people perceive cities. And it's not just about, being...
But that time was not common to talk about like this, right? You should only talk material forms and how things look
Correct.
like
Although I
zero
remember
human.
in former Yugoslavia, we used to have, this was when the schools were organized in the sense that you could choose three specializations in your 4th and 5th year. It was almost 6 years studies. And then you could go to architecture engineering, architectural design, and urbanism. And urbanism was considered that means like if you go into urbanism, you're not going to make it in the real world. You're running away from, the elite.
Yeah.
I remember when I moved from architectural design, I had a whole committee with the dean saying, you can't do this to us. You can't move to urban planning and design because it's going to shame the architectural design track, because I was rather a good student. I said, well, forget it. Who cares? It's like, whatever. So I think that was important because then we discussed, we had good teachers. Some of them ended up in Czech Republic and in New Zealand. Once they introduced me to Christopher Alexander, Jane Jacobs, Kevin Lynch is writing, Gordon Cullen. And it's like, whoa. I was like, one lecture. Actually, it was, to be honest, one lecture changed my life. Really? Of my former professors in New Zealand now, Duško Bogunović, he had the lecture about, it was Introductory Course to Urbanism 101, 4th year. And then I was just standing in the back and it says, what is this? Yeah. It's like, I got to go back and design this, airport. Is this is it. So I think that was the crucial. And it was very similar. I don't want to make these analogies, but for Andreas Duani and his wife, Elizabeth Platter-Zyberg, they used to work for Arquitectonica in Miami. And this was a, super postmodern. If you remember, you're younger than I am, but there's Miami Vice series, the original, with Don Johnson and with, oh boy, here comes the post-COVID cloud. His colleague is a nice actor who played Sonny and Crockett. They usually show these buildings from Miami, which was designed by the firm. They're not Brescia pair. And They went and listened to a lecture by Leon Courier at Yale. And Anders Donny said, after that lecture, it changed our life. We decided to become
Wow.
urbanists. So one inspiring
Yeah,
talk,
yeah.
Mustafa,
Can
can,
change. Yeah, yeah. I totally agree with you because like I heard from so many students and many also like my colleagues, they say like we listen to an episode and it's changed our mind. Like it's the same. You listen to something and then you start, okay, I believe in this because this is it. This is how things
you're
should be
right. You're
done.
absolutely right.
So like many young people choosing KTH because they're believing in like what we talked about and the
Sure,
program and so on.
sure.
Many of them, okay, start to this human centering approach, you know.
Absolutely.
So like listening or trying to be more curious and and
Yeah,
and
yeah. And
and
then you have this added value because you're a voice of urbanism. You are an
thank
influencer
you.
in the ethereal, you know, for us in academia, I can influence the classroom, but you can influence the whole void.
True. No, but I'm happy that you're here. So yeah, continue your story. So you work.
Yeah, and then it was, the war in former Yugoslavia happened. I found myself here in Sweden as I was visiting my family here. So it was not really possible to come back. And then I discovered in the School of Architecture a little leaflet called, it was a master's program, Environmental Engineering and Sustainable Infrastructure. The first environmental science program in Sweden, which was influenced by, of course, the big conference on environment. Stockholm was famous for that. What was it, 82, right, or something? And the first program was then established in 95, which was a beautiful combination of environmental heavy engineering subjects and then environmental science as the big umbrella. And then the part which was called sustainable infrastructure was really planning and sustainability. And it was beautiful because that was an eye opener for me. I didn't know anything about it. So that was the first paradigm, second, third paradigm change. Second one was the discovering urbanism. Then it was this. And then I, just stayed automatically. Got my second master's there, and then I did my PhD studies in urban and regional planning, regional science. That was another changer because of the more different perspective, and that was done on reconstruction, post-conflict reconstruction of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And that actually brought me now that I was invited to join the Roskvit group for rebuilding Ukraine. So I'm part of that group now, although I'm a little bit sort of on hold, a little bit temporary because I have some other things to do. So I'm very happy to be part of that. So that brought me something which I left in 2005, which I didn't really work with anymore. And then the rest was, gosh, many years have passed, but designed many master's programs, running the Center for the Future of Places, focus on public space, associate professorship in that. Meeting students was the best part of everything. The program that you went through, that's a little bit partially mine and Lars Marcus's baby. My good friend and colleague was a professor of urban design at Chalmers. He left KTH some years back. And then, of course, also there was a period of introspection in a way because I ended up in a subject teaching one of the environmental engineering courses, which calls project design and implementation. And then our former professor, Folke Snickers, came to me one day and said, we should have a course in project management. And then he said, we should have a course on sustainable project management. You do it. I said, well, I'm not really equipped for that. So it was learning by doing. And then I got in touch with all the main actors in project management, Harold Kersner, David Cleland, Brian Atkin, Henry Mintzberg, Kees van Hayden. And in that period, I learned a lot. I ran the course and I became a guest professor in the School of Management and Economics in Zagreb, helped them build their MBA program. And it was great subject. And unfortunately, I decided to close it myself, saying you like to our director of studies, we need to reform and renew the program, which was a mistake. And it's like, I jumped into the water, everybody stayed on the cliff. I said, well, we're not jumping after him. And because it was so popular, Mustafa, we had 65 people from all different master's programs at KTH coming in. Because the idea was, what I did, it was very near practice. So it was based on guest lectures from all the key international companies in Sweden. You've got everybody from Saab Aerospace, IKEA, SIS, NCC, Skanska, Daimler Chrysler, Adtrans. We took people to Nokia every year to Finland. Crosshair. What else did we have? CEOs, pharma industry was there. You name it, 120 CEOs head project managers and vice presidents were part of the course. So it was super. And then we got really good workshops based on, we used the Microsoft project management. We developed workshops which were used to train ABB project managers in Ludvika by a cloud comes in. I can remember a good colleague from that time. He was one of the heads, I think was vice president of ABB at that time. I'll try to remember later on. So it was a great period. So at that time I actually thought maybe I should go into this. Although I never left urban design or urbanism, I had a parallel. It was a very dynamic period, and that taught me a lot because we talked about managing, strategic management, project management, and above all, project leadership, human resources, and things like that. So, which I tried to implement in things that I ran
Yeah.
afterwards.
What is like the most difficult part in designing a program?
Well, I think you have to do a good background work.
Can you tell us like how do you get the assignment and how do you work like the process of designing a program?
Sure. I think the one that we designed, it was basically me coming to the dean of faculty dean of KTH, Prof. Stinkars, once we had lunch on the grass, and I said, Volke, KTH is a wonderful institute, and we don't have a master's in urban design, an urban planning design, and I have an idea. He said, just do it.
Okay.
And then I went to Lars Marcus, who was one of the few people actually in charge. We don't have chairs at KTH. We don't, those positions. It's still, huge departments at that time. Was faculty of architecture, civil engineering, and surveying. And I said, Lars, during lunch, this is what I have an idea. He said, this is brilliant. Let's do it. One of the things I didn't do was to do a master's at Harvard in architecture. That was the big plan to do. And that's the thing with the war, would change things. Even though I was in love with urban planning and design, I said I would love to get a master's in architecture at GSD, the number one top school in the world. And there were good opportunities to get scholarships and things like that. And then at that time, I looked at a lot of programs. And I said to Lars, all top schools have this. We need to have it because in the bachelor's program, we really don't have urban design, urbanism. We don't talk about cities at all. People go through architectural design, they're clueless. They get maybe a little bit of a course or whatever. Here, we can do it. And at the end, then we divided to do the work. And the similar happened in the Masters in Urbanism that I did, design of public spaces, to do the background work, do the state-of-the-art investigation of, let's say, top 20 programs.
Like what is there? What kind of courses?
Absolutely. Take it from Asia, take it from France, Germany, UK, US, China. Look at all the programs they have.
So you Google and you...
At that time, I remember 2006, we could Google, we write, we get the brochures. I went to States, to a number of universities, talked to people. Okay, this is what it is. This is what's our niche? What could we do? And of course, the dominating thing was sustainability and Sweden.
Of course, yeah, the image and the identity.
Exactly. This is what then we could get into the urban planning design program, but of course with a more, let's say, global prospect or outlook. It's kind of a global program in a way. And then it went really well. But of course, all kinds of things come into play, politics and...
Yeah. Tell me the details. Like, okay, you did the research. What was next?
I would say then of course it was our former professor, Joran Karsh, who helped us get it through the system. And getting a program through system to KTH takes almost a year or even a year and a half. At that time, you could introduce new programs. My second master's that I designed on urbanism was the last one allowed at KTH. You cannot come up with new, unless they're cluster programs, Mustafa, where you have, cooperation with a number of universities and you're just piece of the puzzle.
Why you cannot anurmore?
That's the decision they have. It's the places are saturated. We don't have any places for students anymore. So if I introduce a program, the urbanism program had only 5 places, but 15 were added because the foundation paid for them. So it's sort of that complication, which I think is very sad. I think
I mean, it's sad if knowledge stops just because there's no space.
Absolutely. Plus, it's why the American programs are. I mean, that could be a whole program. Why they're the best master's programs in the world. One thing is that they come up with innovations all the time. They restructure their programs. They introduce new courses, and they can introduce new master's programs. And there's no. If you have a good idea, you come to the dean or some. There's no. Oh, sorry, Mustafa, go home. come back in 10 years.
If it makes sense, so let's do it. Yeah.
One of the wonderful programs, my good friend and colleague Sarah Williams was running the Center for Leventhal Center for Advanced Urbanism, where I'm associated. She has running this great program in urban science at MIT. That's a combination of computer sciences, geographical sciences, planning, and it's sort of a quantitative, qualitative thing, and even management. So it's beautiful sort of merging of disciplines. So it takes a lot of time to get the program through the bureaucracy, develop the courses. And of course, at that time, then the group became larger. We were a group almost of, 10, 11 people working on the program. But there was a parallel. There's some sort of these inside stories. Very nice proposal from Christer Lindstedt from White, Ola Andersson, which is our very well-known architectural critic and from also architectural designer, and Jan Åman, was a sort of a think tank, urban. He worked very much with Upplands Väsby Labs, amongst other things. They came up with a proposal which was called Stockholm at Large, based on one of their things in. And I thought that was very interesting. It was like one long elongated studio. Let's say our proposal actually got through. That one didn't. But then the architectural school got their own architectural masters in architecture later on. So that was laying the foundations and the background work. It's very difficult. It takes a long time if you want to develop it. And then, of course, is it the right people running the right courses?
How do you make sure that you have the right people running? I mean, you follow, you do also, I know you do research, but.
Sure. It's like in Hollywood movies. You want to make a blockbuster, you offer it to Robert De Niro, then you can't get him, you get somebody else.
Yeah, like.
It's like that. In the beginning, you have like, okay, this is the people I want to run. These are the best in their areas. In urbanism program, we wanted to have Torbjörn Andersson, a good friend of mine, I think our premier landscape architect and landscape urbanist in Sweden. He couldn't do it. He was involved in SLU. I wanted to have Ola Andersson, get Jan Åman, they couldn't do it. And then you get second best. And then, of course, you're also forced to get local faculty, which is okay. And I'm a local faculty too.
So what is the biggest challenge when you're designing a program?
To see if anybody's going to apply when you put
Yeah.
put
After
it
you're
into
building it up.
Yeah, we were actually forced to go 1 year before time, and I was afraid, oh gosh, how we do this? We didn't have time to announce it. We did announce it. I designed the webpage against all KTH rules. Yeah. I fought with the communications, and I said, I'm not going to use KTH pages. There's nothing there at that time. This was, mind you, 1996, right? Sorry, this was 2006, 16 years ago, and the web pages were not good as they were now. So I built a completely independent web page hanging on KTH server, and then I moved it to another server, and the web page was great. It was like, and I asked every student, why did you come here? Because of the web page. So, and we had 150 applicants the first year.
How many places? 50 or more?
I think it was like 50 or something. And that was for UPD, Urban Planning and Design. Later on, SUPD now has 600 applicants or even 1,000. That group. But for urbanism, we had only maybe 75 for 15 places, which was good. And later on, we had a stable 250 applicants for these 15 places. So it was good. And it became actually very much a program where there were more women than men. So there were more female, let's say, urbanists that we produced at the end.
This is like something also KTH working for, right? Like as a mission.
We were there before time. I was there before me too, in a way, with the Athena project of the school. But just happened like that. It was very popular for female students, and of course, the urbanism program was focused on public space. We called it the Neo-Gellian program. Jan Gell was involved there a little bit, and we had PPS also and things like that. The thing was, it was a completely externally funded master's program. So it took me almost 2 years to get into the system. It was a very difficult process, and it was a lot of hurdles. And it was the last program allowed to get into the system. There was only 5 places from the school, and then we had 15 more from the foundation paid.
What is the funniest in designing a program?
That's a good question. The funniest aspect of designing, right? I think envisioning the first day of classes.
Really?
Yeah. Because we also, I had a studio, I had a whole floor for the program. Students have their own rooms, own design tables.
That's luxury.
It was luxurious. They of course went like the American system every year, We had Mexico City, we had Italy, classical architecture with Professor Pontvik, we had Morocco. So it was plans also for Tehran and for Beijing studios to have this global outreach, because the first semester, first block was Nordic, studying Nordic countries focus, and then it was a European one. So that's why we had a student in Berlin, and then it was the global one at the end. So it was very nice. 1 year. I had colleagues, Professor Ali Madanipur said to me, it's like, that's a tricky thing to have in 1 year.
Too much in 1 year, no?
In a sense, it is. You have to compress quite a lot into 1 year.
Yeah.
And we did that. But
I think many students appreciate, like, now I went to the SUPD, like the 2 years,
Right.
and we didn't do any trips. So everyone went to the urbanism.
Right.
They're really appreciating it.
Yeah, it was I always thought of it as a compliment to SUPD. Some people, some members, faculty members thought, well, here's a competition.
Yeah,
Competition is always good because then you raise the bar.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
it's not really, I mean, of course, yes, the external funding helped the international studios. They helped the trips. It helped to get the international faculty in. But I remember having discussions with the dean, and she said, whoa, it's like, why are you bringing all these international people? And she said, basically, it's like you giving KTH a bad name. I said, no, you're looking at the wrong way.
Why, like, giving bad
It's
name?
because that means we don't have people here.
Like a local people.
I said, no, look at it the opposite way. You ask yourself, why are these people coming here? Why can I get like top people from Harvard or UPenn or TU Berlin or TU Vienna here? They must be coming because the program is good. They're not just coming because they're going to get paid for a lecture around a studio. So it's the opposite. And I think it's that you have to have the smorgasbord, Mustafa. This is, if you don't have it, and you have to diversify.
Yeah, you have to.
Look at this thing after COVID-19 now. Think now I'm a little bit frustrated that we're not thinking about many online programs.
So many, yeah. Is it good or bad?
I think we should have a complement to the on-site physical studies, offering specific certificates, specific sort of that you taste the program that you might come physically to later on, and issue a specific certificate or a diploma or a short. There's a whole, like a explosion of mini MBA programs, and people think it's a hoax, and they're like fake programs. No, they're actually real. And they're training between 2 or 4 weeks or 6 to 9 days or 12 days. You get like very, compact. So I think this is what KTH could do now that we have built all these Zoom platforms. I wouldn't like this to disappear. Not because maybe there'll be another pandemic, but because we need to be there. And if there's an idea for a good new master's program or new courses, they should be allowed.
How was teaching during the pandemic? Because you used to be like ERL and you love people, like
Not everybody was happy. And I remember I'm evaluating, this is my 4th year evaluating 2 programs. One is in the UK, University College London, Sustainable Urbanism, and I interviewed the students, and the other one is in the US. It's the same. We don't like online lectures. We don't like tape stuff.
because of like it's boring to listen to.
When you have 50 people online, a lot of them just close the cameras. UCL, they also used a lot of tape lectures.
You mean like recording?
Not good. Sometimes they were live. And of course, then you have the live online. But of course, I think this human contact and the discussion in groups that you have, and you've been involved as a guest teacher in SUPD, when you come and talk to students online and you come in person, it's a different story. But of course, it's the health is predominant. I mean, number one thing, one has to be, and even I think later on was like, okay, let's get into it in a sort of, let's be careful when we come back to the classrooms. So I think we're going to come back to the classrooms for sure, but we'll see what has COVID-19 done in these 2 years, and what, do we run things at the same thing like we did before, or do we adapt? Do we have a little bit of, one thing which was extremely positive with the online thing is that you could get almost anybody you wanted. So if I can't get Richard Florida to come to do a talk, I'll get him online. So that was the plus.
But do you see like in the future university is going to continue with like 50-50 like Zoom and ERL to make maybe more space for new master programs?
It's a really good question. It's a big discussion in different schools around the world. They're thinking, okay, now do we go hybrid? Do we keep certain things online? I think you need to take a combination of things. and see where you're good at. And of course, at the end of the day, one has to understand if you're going to bill the students so much money for the programs, and we know how expensive they're in the US, then you have to give them value for the
Yeah, like the
quality
experience and
for sure. And if it's, I would say, if it's online programs, you need to lower the price. That doesn't mean it's lesser quality, but they are losing on campus side, and that is a big minus. So I think a combination things. One has to have visions. One has to be a visionary leader. And I say always this all the time. It's not easy to be a dean, head of programs, head of departments. If you're not a visionary, fortunately, I think in Sweden, and I know I might get branded as a witch here. There's way too much micromanagement in universities. I mean, a lot of taking care of the administration, small things and visions are put in documents, strategic ones, but are they really strategic documents? And how do you measure them? And I always said, because I work with project management, you have to measure, you have to have indicators how to measure these. You have to have key performance indicators. You have to have deliverables. You have to have a critical project, CP path. You need to, at the end, see who's going to do what and measure, have you really done it? So if it just stays on pamphlets and stuff like that, it's very difficult. So it's a tough thing.
yeah. So like let's say I'm in university, what should I put online and what should I put to URL of my course content? What should we send online? Because what I understand, maybe um, ERL is number one, and then online is like a complementary something like
True. I mean, one of the famous things that MIT did many, many years back, it was the MIT course openware, where they were thinking actually about the people that do not have the resources to come to MIT and study, that are in lower income communities in countries which, have a lower GDP and so on. And they almost open up all their courses and show this is what we have. So you can use a lot of courseware. And that helped them sort of transition to this online thing that they have specific courses which are given. So what in terms, if you run a course, I would say specific things can be done online, maybe an international lecture where you have all the people, specific maybe smaller workshops, but then you would have to complement that with on-site lectures where you on-site work where you meet the students face to face, and especially going to sites. This was one of the big criticisms in the UK when I did the program. We couldn't go into sites because of the pandemics. We didn't see any projects. And finally, how do you deal with the practice oriented part of your program? Because I think most of our programs really need to be oriented towards practice and have more practitioners when you want to visit places, different consultancies, architectural offices, and so on. That needs to be in real time.
but do you like, because usually many of the programs are too academic and a bit far away from the reality, and it's a bit sad. Like I'm talking from my perspective, like I attended three different universities, like in Milan, in Stockholm, and in Lund. Of course it depends on the course and so on, but many of them like too academic. And when I am coming to reality, like now started to work, I was like, okay, what is this? It's like it was useless to attend this course, completely useless. Like if you take 2 years, maybe 6 months are the best. The rest is like useless theory. This is my opinion. I maybe like I know like some other people they love theory, and then so but like I feel that it's a kind of far away from the reality.
Detached from reality. I think you have a very valid point. It differs. One falls into that trap depending, who runs the program, who's designing it. Of course, I I like theory, and I think we need more theories. We need to explain the things happening. But I also understand the value of the practice, and it's a major thing because I saw how important that was when I was running the project management course. How people involved, how the students loved getting these people from directly from basically the track where Volvo C60 was being produced, or the newest Nokia phone came out. So they just felt, or the new pill pro Losec was, how do we do that? But also sending people to do the master's program sitting in companies. So, working on a very current project. I think depending what you have, Mustafa, if you have let's say an urban design program, definitely if you have studios, you need to have people that are involved in practice.
Yeah, let's just make my point clear.
Mm,
Theory is good, just to attach it to reality. Like, okay, what should I do with a theory that I cannot implement or even work with it here?
sure. This is the thing we struggled when I designed the Masters in Urbanism. I don't think we succeeded, to be perfectly honest. One has to be critical of himself, herself, and also the reality. Our idea was that these smaller modules will give input to the studios, the theoretical modules, let's call them. Give this, and then we're going to implement it. We saw different things happening in the studios. It took a different life of its own. And of course, if you, let's say, have an ideology, say, the program is kind of, I always try to apply Robert Stearns. He was the former dean of School of Architecture in Yale. He said all ideas have equal standing. I added another piece to it, but some ideas are simply better than the others. So in a way, we thought, okay, maybe Jan Gill's ideas is really good for the urbanism program. But then you have people running the studios, they might think differently. And they take and I think it's not bad at the end, because you as a student, it's very difficult to get about. I think one would have to look, what are the top programs that have succeeded in doing that? I remember I was involved when I did my postdoc, I was involved in the studios. Director at that time was Peter Boselman, very good Dutch architect and practitioner, but also a theoretician, and he involved me in the studio. So, and then I was also involved in MIT's city design and development, which I think now is run by my colleague Brent Ryan. At that time, it was Dennis Frenchman. And then the third one was the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, where my good friend Doug Kelbo, now he was the dean at that time, and Roy Strickland ran a beautiful program, which was inspiration for urban planning and design. Oh, you asked me now. My memory is coming back. That was the inspiration in my postdoc in 2005 to start the one, because I came fresh and I saw how Roy ran the program. And he was very good, connected to close practice. They went to Chicago studios, they went to New York, and so on. And what I noticed in all these programs, it was very strong. Unfortunately, none of them were female. Strong directors that took control of the program. We changed later on at Berkeley. They sort of, and because they involved themselves very much into it.
And also like from studying in different countries, in some universities you need to follow what the professor says, otherwise you will not get
Sure, sure.
how to say degree. In other university they tell you like your idea is the best and you're good to go. So what is your reflection, like which one is the best and why?
I come from a tradition in former Yugoslavia where in the architectural studios you get massacred. It's a slaughterhouse. You even if you survive, you have your limbs cut out, or I'm sorry to use these words, but it's like you're learned by heavy criticism. And I think it's okay up to a certain point where problems arise if you start to insult people. If you start to insult the students and say, well, you're completely incompetent, you should study veterinary sciences, you're stupid, you should go and study agriculture. But if you get heavy criticism, it's good. If you say everything is great, you're going to get nothing out of it. So you can't have these two opposite poles. I think you should have something in the middle. William J. Mitchell, who was my host at MIT when I did my 3 rounds of postdoc, unfortunately, third one he died. He had this wonderful idea that he was heavy on criticism, but he said, I always try to find the least little piece of good stuff in the student's project. And then I build on it. And then I say, Mustafa, this is good. This is where you should build on it. But I think you need to have a good criticism in any kind of a studio environment.
Like because here in Sweden I was not used to get like criticism, just maybe
Yeah,
very light. um then like I was told, okay, project is good,
sure,
interesting way of
sure.
thinking and so on. I went to Italy in Politecnico di Milano. There was like things are bold, like the
Yes.
professor is very like bold. They're not insulting, telling you like you're stupid or no, but like they're when they give feedback and criticize your what you
Mm,
build or what
mm,
you did,
mm.
you feel like, okay, I'm stupid.
I think you're absolutely right, and it's depends on the culture, and of course the different how the universities developed. Italians are different than Swedes, and so on. I think the problem here, maybe a problem, maybe that's not the right word, but the thing is that you try to avoid conflicts. That's typical of Swedish culture in a way, but an architectural urban design studio is a conflict environment. It's a conflict as soon as you design something. There's going to be conflicts with somebody or something or with the
It's same
space.
here, like in reality. It's as soon as you put a plan, conflict with the traffic department, with the owners, with the landlords.
So the key thing comes in, and I've seen brilliant people working in the studios that have an encompassing knowledge of projects, current projects. I had a great friend in TU Berlin, Alyosha Hoffman. I had another colleague at MIT. And if you sit with them, you know that Alyosha is going to have 50 projects in his head. So you will say, and then he will give you analogies directly. This is how it's done there. They made mistakes. You did the same thing. I would suggest you do this.
Okay, so that's how.
And it's good. It's not saying this is terrible, so go home. And I remember I was involved in one criticism in the architectural school when they had Julian De Smet. And he's one of these star architects that basically started the company called, was it called Step, with the Bjarke Ingels, with most of the Bjarke's ideas came later on. I'm sorry, maybe it's not Step. Square, stone, something like that. But they started a thing, and then most of these designs later on were very prominent in Bjarke. And Julien went to the other, and he was in the critic board, and there was other people. It's like he was going after students. And it was his studio, but he was part of the criticism. And then I got emboldened and said, whoa, I can do the same thing, which I used to do a long time before. So I did the same. And it was like students were shocked. They just said, but if you give them, I mean, what I say.
So like, what is your advice to the let's say jury when they criticize or they give feedback? What is the best balance in your opinion?
First of all, you need to prepare your students before every course and tell them in the course PM, it will be heavy criticism. It will be constructive criticism. Your projects will be, scrutinized from number. And then, of course, is the key thing how you choose the jury. You need to choose a good balance of people and with the knowledge, and also, good cop, bad cop, softer and harder. And I think that's going to be, and of course, you don't never cross the line when it comes to insults and attacking without any kind of reasoning or argumentation why you did that. So you cannot tell somebody you're an idiot because you haven't put stairs in the skyscraper. Of course, you might be an idiot because you haven't done that, but you don't do it that way.
Yeah. So the way you communicate.
You communicate, and the way you put the crit boards, that's very important. I had this wonderful, I think it was made in UPenn, this wonderful graphic of how you construct visually and in place, even how you assemble a crit studio. So it's every little detail is important, where people are sitting, what they say, and so on.
Does the university offer like a kind of how to give a feedback to students or no?
Well, at the end, usually the feedback comes after the
the criticism, how you comment.
That's what I said. That's what you need to bake into. I think I ran once a studio with my colleague Bojan Boric at the architectural school, and also was there before with another colleague, and we baked it into the studio course PM. How we are going to criticize during the studios, during the crit sessions, and of course you have to have the learning outcomes of what's expected. But it's also important, aside from what's required for A, B, C, D, E, F grades, how do you go about doing the crit? Because then nobody can come afterwards and say, wait a minute, you came up with something completely unexpected.
What is your style?
Well, I haven't done studios in a long time because it's a matter of principle. I'm not in practice. I haven't been in practice from 1993. So I feel going back to studios, I would have to renew my knowledge of all the projects, and I think there's better people to do it. But I like somewhere in between. Give constructive criticism and give argumentation and give similar projects that have solved the issues that maybe this colleague hasn't done.
As an inspiration too.
Look into that and then ask the key questions. If you were a person, put yourself into this. This is what Mark Childs always used to say, famous, I think, Chicago architect that has done the Ground Zero together with Libeskin, the redesign. Libeskin won the competition, but was a redesigned tower. And Mark Childs was involved. And he said the important thing is that you put your place in the user's perspective, regardless if it's a professional or user. So if you are a user of this, whatever project, what would you think? Are you happy with your design? Try to get yourself out of your shoes. And if it's an urbanism, of course, how are people going to react to this? Spaces between buildings, your handling of housing, and so on.
Did it happen that because you are also examinator? Is it like this?
Yeah, I'm examining. Yeah, in a number of courses. Yeah.
Did it happen that when you told the student the feedback, like they cried or something like this?
There was tears in studios, but I've seen that less in Sweden.
Yeah, less in Sweden.
I've seen it in other countries. I've seen a lot of tears when I was studying architecture. Yeah, and also later on when I was in the studios, and it's very difficult. when you see a colleague, crying after this heavy criticism he gets from professors. I've never done this to a student that he or she cried. No, I would, but then you can't stop if somebody feels, because at the end of the day, all these colleagues have invested a lot of time. It's different when you have somebody skating through, the easy riders. You see that if you follow the student, you know that he has done nothing. Then, of course, I can try to massacre him or her. But if you see somebody has been involved and nobody's, very few people are showing Mustafa born as talents from the beginning. You don't see, Zaha Hadid or Daniel Libeskin in the first. That develops through time. You see people that are great in rendering, good in engineering. They have some good ideas, but you can see talents after second or third year. You can see people that are stuck out from the and those you have to support in a way. That means okay, but in a sense, it's a very difficult question. It's difficult when you get into the environment. There's so many different molecules in the air and so many different parameters that change the scheme of the game.
Yeah, I remember like we had a studio and my colleague, she got like also feedback or criticize. They criticized her project and then she went to cry, like, and I start to cry with her as well. Like
No,
it's
of
it's
course,
difficult because I know like she spent the last
of
week
course,
non-sleeping
of
hours, and
course. It's
in the
very
end,
sad.
for what? Like,
And of course, it's in the eye of the beholder. You once think about it when you look at I think there were two people in architectural school, Magnus Röhn and Reza Kazemian, who wrote a number of books and research findings on the ideas behind architectural competitions, the ideas in the heads of the committees, the people that select these things. And we've seen in Sweden how many of these just fell down. They were like canceled and things like that. And in many countries, you have a lot of corruption in these. And it's the same with the crits. It's in the eye of the beholder. This is my specific point of view. Who is Tigran Haas to say that, this project is not good? But then that's why you have to have the diversity of the board. And I love the best things when people in board don't agree.
I think this is the best thing. No,
That's the best things for this. If you have this, like everybody's like, chickens repeating what everybody said, that's terrible. Oh, I agree. Oh, what a great point you have made. No, you don't. No, go against it. Even if that's why I had a good exchange with Julian de Smith. I disagree with him. Then I said, and it's like he said at the end of the studio, he said, I had no clue who you are. It's like you're nobody for me. But then I started to respect you at the end. I thought, you're good.
it happened that like as a student, it's easy to feel like when the jury is faking the positive feedback just to
Sure.
cover the negative one.
Sure. You can feel that, and also not to take the easy way out. We're just gonna say it's okay, and you're doing a björntjänst, right? You're doing this favor to these people later on. That's why I think it's even better to get tough criticism, because then you get a harder skin. When you get into practice in architectural offices, when your principals say, this is not good, Tigran, this is not a good design, redesign it. Good, okay.
This is, to be honest, this is like, even if I like when I went to Italy, I felt that they are very bold there in giving criticism and feedback. But when I came back working in reality,
Mhm.
it was good for me. Like, like because I can argue instead of go and cry, right? Like I can stand for my point.
Great point, Mustafa. And I think that's the good thing, that they're in Italy. They're very open. They will tell you things in
Yeah.
face value, direct, point blank. This is what I think. And later on, still you'll be friends. But it's good that you get it. There's no hidden agenda.
It's a respectful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think this is the key. Like so far, you're keeping the respect in the words you tell.
Sure.
And you're like how to say it.
And I think you were right when I said I went through the system where the professors in architectural school were almost like deities. And it's difficult to go against the professor, especially if he's a star architect or whatever. Oh, he's built these hospitals. You can't question him.
No, he's the god.
Yeah, and then of course, if he's the god, then of course he has to put all these smaller gods in as assistants. And and this is I think an interesting point I've seen in different schools around the world, like you have. This is where courses might fail if you do not put good assistants in courses. You can have a brilliant professor, but if you have teaching assistants or people helping with the students that are not good, you can diminish the quality immediately.
What do you mean by good? Like what skills should they have?
Well, it has to be people that are sticking out from the others, that have innovation, that have talent, that are showing good leaders, good pedagogical skills, that are on top of their projects. You don't choose just everybody to be your, so I think that's important for the students. And if students like to come and see, hey, wait a minute, look at this young guy. He's been like in 3 offices already, has designed this. And this is what I liked with the thing where in SUP, the first course was Patrick Verhoeven, who's now in MandaWorks, right? And then, here he's a talented, smart guy, but he's also got this track record behind him. It's not coming somebody
No,
like a bluff.
he's credible, you know?
Exactly. Credibility is everything in these
Yeah,
schools.
yeah. Patrick is like, I love him. He was my examinator. Like,
There you go. So that's the thing you appreciate, and also you sit. Students like to sit, afterwards, hours, and then discuss these.
the thing with Patrick, shout out to him. He was a mix between the bold one and the super cool and Swedish one. So we tasted the both, you know.
Sure. You got a taste of Dutch architecture and urbanism, landscape urbanism too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, it's interesting. Like, what do you think the challenge is now for you?
As we said, it's been a period of. I ran the Center for the Future of Places. I ran a master's program in urbanism. I had a huge Civitas program with the research PhD students. All of that came to a halt at the end because of the foundation that sponsored us. They just, it was always the idea of 5 + 5 years for all 2 projects, for the masters and the center. And we came to this, we did wonderful things. And I think honestly, without any false modesty, our annual plans speak for itself. They were highly valued at KTH and other universities, saying it's like, how did you manage to do 250 events, including the pandemic years, 350 publications, 20 books, enormous, massive, 20 projects, almost 50 people involved. Yes, we had the funding. The problem is due to internal problems in the Axel St. Johnson Foundation, the retirement of the key person who was running urban city research, all that was closed overnight. And unfortunately, they were the ones making the agreements, not KTH, which I think was a mistake. KTH has been way too lenient in these things. When you make an agreement for funding or donation or endowment, there should be something that after 5 years, if you do a good job, you should get the 5 years. It's almost an automatic renewal. And here, there was no explanation why everything was killed overnight. So in a sense, I was very sour. I'm saying, whoever listens from the foundation, they can listen as long as they want. This is not what a foundation should be doing. Any American foundation would find itself in very big problems afterwards. And I, as a project leader, would make havoc, especially if I haven't done anything wrong. On the contrary. And I think the most tragic thing is killing urban city research, sponsoring urbanism, Mustafa. There's so few foundations doing this these days. So this was a shining star together with Arvidsson. The others, Wallenberg, they give very much to medical research. Yeah. A lot is given to green economies, to all kinds of other fields which need it, of course. But we are always problematic. We depend. I mean, MIT got this incredible donation of $100 million from a Chinese philanthropist. I forgot his Garo Chang. And you got all these people coming in at times and giving this, and they understand the importance of it. I discussed this with Richard Florida recently, and he said, we were dependent on these donations, but of course, the schools, if the school cannot do it, then you do it. So that shook me, after my dad died in April, everything was gone in September. I had to finish up. We did it in a very, very good way. We closed it, but I found myself in a sort of, oh, wow. I was hoping for this continuation, and it's like now, sure, you can apply for certain funds and all that, but it was tragic that to lose such a master's program overnight. And there, I blame the school. I blame KTH, of course. I don't blame them for the center. Center is, of course, closed is fine, but if it was a good job, then let's see how we can continue the momentum. Do we invest in a lab that you want to do? Do we give money in a project that you're interested in? Can we help you a few years afterwards to phase it out? But master should never be killed if it was good. Okay, we don't have spaces, but we can sponsor maybe 5 more. We'll give you 5 more to continue. I'm very open with criticism. Everybody knows that. So I'm not afraid of it.
Did you talk to them? Like, okay, let's solve it somehow.
Yeah, I did. I talked to everybody, and I think this is what we're very critical in KTH. This is how a good university has to exist, and it's the question of academic freedom. Our president has sponsored that thing that you can stand by your ideas and you can criticize your closest bosses, your deans, and so on if they're not doing a good job or if you don't think that. But it's a very difficult environment to, it's not an American university. I always say that. There, um, well, let me leave it at that.
Okay.
So I found myself in a little bit of void, but I'm now want to launch my lab by the end of the year. It's called Halcyon Athenium Laboratory. I like all these Greek names, and the logo is this beautiful halcyon mythical bird, which comes as one of the Greek old tales. It comes after big calamities, after terrible times, let's say pandemics or wars. There's a way of calming. The bird comes and calms the seas and brings prosperity.
So, like, is it a private or how is it?
No, it would be a lab at, like my colleague Vanya Ceccato is very well known for urban security and crime issues. She has this portal or platform for her research. So it will be a lab, which I used to run a lab with a number of people called Civitas Athenium Laboratory with urban planning and design. And here we'll extract the best things from the center, maybe develop it into one or two projects, and then I have affiliates around the world working with me. But we need to find some base funding to do it, and I'm in process of
how
that
much
right now.
is it, like, expensive?
No, I always see if our funding for the center was from 5 to 10 million Swedish crowns per year. We usually got 7.5. That was for a lot of projects, a lot of people involved. The lab doesn't need more than 2 to 3 million per year.
Okay, it's not so much, no?
No, it's $200,000 for a philanthropist is nothing. And I'll do the same wonders that I did for 10 for 2. And I have the idea the lab will focus on a number of things.
What is the focus?
One thing will be, which is my little pet project, developing new theories, looking at the theories we have and try to build upon them. Then it will be also issues of health, urban health, and community, civic community. We saw through the pandemic, there's something problematic there. There's also issue about loneliness, which I think is very good to bring in. And then the rest will see urban transformations in specific ways in cities, but also looking at these paradigms. So we'll try to complement things that are already out there.
Do you have, like, a list of people that you love to have them?
Probably. I mean, when you leave a specific company and let's say you've done a good job, you take all your contacts with you. So everybody from the center, we have this amazing strategic board where we have Saskia Sassen, Richard Florida, Mano Castells, Ed Glazer, Rahul Mehrotra, who was the head of urban design and planning at Harvard, Seta Love, Alan Berger from MIT, and all these people are coming. They're coming with me to the lab, so I will be basically transfer them, and the affiliates will depend on the projects. It will be renewal, so it'll be new faces coming in. And I have to say that you've done an amazing job with the podcast in our center, so you'll be one of those amazing people in the lab too.
Thank you so much, and also, like, it's a big pleasure for me to be part of this. But also, like, it's so interesting now after recording, I think 310 episodes. The most listened episode is the one from the center.
With the Professor Seta Low, right?
All of them, but Setha is the most listened one on Urbanistica.
That's wonderful to say. I need to tell her that. Her books just got translated back in Croatia with my colleagues in Zagreb, and she has this wonderful combination of urban geography, urban anthropology, environmental psychology.
And also, like, the way she thinks it's like more, there is a mission. There is like a mission, true mission behind it. It's not like let's do a publication and that's it. Next.
She's done wonderful things in our project of developing the public spaces database, which has been launched now. It's called terrapublica.org, I think. And she did this. She was the key person together with Vika Smekta, Professor University of Cincinnati, somebody who's written wonderful things about streets and urban design. And of course, David Brain and others. And then we have this great contact with Ali Madanipur, Matthew Carmona. Everybody in the public space rooster is connected to us. The other 5 years of the center, actually, just that were supposed to be work with people like Yale Architects, Project for Public Spaces, STIPO. We were moving more towards practice. This is what our steering committee also wanted. Let's see how we can help projects on the ground. And that's why I'm a little bit saddened that was, we had 5 years, okay, great research projects. A lot of this stuff is being done. And now let's see if we can next stage. But it's okay.
What is the new lab going to produce?
Well, in a sense, it's I am always been a believer of books, but it's not enough with the books. You have to have I remember when the Future Places conference was done under the auspices of this Axel St. Johnson Foundation Project for Public Spaces in New York and UN Habitat. It was the biggest assemblage in 3 years from 2012 to 15. I think Quito was 16, right, Mustafa, right? It was supposed to bring a new change in the thinking on human settlement. So in the final document, public spaces were supposed to have a big place. So the idea was to produce that. It was an incredible momentum, but not much came as the final product because it was at the end, we saw, you have to see the value of these white papers and also these policy documents that come in within that do a lot of stuff. They do a lot of good, and they're important. Manual for mayors and things. From academia, we used to treat these things very badly before, and even now. Oh well, that's done in the house in World Bank. It must be rubbish. Oh, that's like a crap document done by some unknown. No. On the contrary, these are the things that actually shape policy, not what we say in schools. So I think that maybe the lab should work on a specific. If there's a great model that because when I designed the center, I also looked at a colleague of mine. She has done a wonderful state-of-the-art search of competitors in our field or centers that are doing similar things. So she looked at maybe 15 centers, and one of them was, of course, the Urban Age project with Ricky Burdett and Philip Rode in London School of Economics that produced these Urban Age conferences that were just absolutely brilliant. I went with one of my PhD students, Kyle Farrell, to one in Venice in, when was that? Maybe 2014. I can't remember anymore. Sorry for the dates. Absolutely stunning. And then you got mayors sitting on the tables there. You got people from UN Habitat. You got practitioners, and you got the academics. And you see this document is going to be produced. The books, they're going to have a huge impact. They produce these in, Endless City doc. If you remember those three major books, green, yellow, and orange one. And also these visualizations, they did visualizing the urban global cities around the world and with data. So I think if we're going to be relevant, and this is one of the interesting discussions now, you have to have this show relevance in the data. You have to do studies that, people like Ann Legeby, the ones doing spatial analysis and design. But on the other hand, also, you need to show that has justification in theory and what's going on also, and that will do. So you have to complement it in a way. Otherwise, it might just end up in confirming a specific paradigm, a specific idea that you are already, you just want to confirm these things. No, maybe we want to find something else. Rem Koolhaas once said in his seminal paper, whatever happened to urbanism in MLXL book, we need to have 1,000 urbanisms. There is no golden key. Now, the older I'm getting, the more I'm a Rem follower, the less I am a follower, let's say, of Anders Duani and the others, which I respect very much. And of course, new urbanism has done, when we compare the stuff that's being done with the 15-minute city today, a lot of those things
we're going to comment all of
We're going to come back to that. And then I think I see the fundamental difference why that didn't succeed. It was, of course, because of the ideologies that people taught and because of the architectural styles. But in Rem's thinking, of course, you could say his theoretical things, are reflected in his designs, which sometimes, and there's another big story we could have even not with me, maybe with somebody who's better equipped with that question of aesthetics, Mustafa, the beauty. Today's world where we have the cancel culture, where you have the politically incorrect and correct and other things, it's very difficult to say something is ugly, a building is ugly. Ooh, then you're insulting the planners, the commissioner's office, the architect, the people living inside. But I think we need to start talking about beauty and ugliness.
I had an episode with the head of landscape architecture in Helsingborg. And he say in Sweden, we stopped to talk about like the beauty of the buildings and we are afraid of that. And he be like, with the new European Bauhaus,
right?
Beauty is one of
that's going to be very interesting. Yeah, that whole thing with the Bauhaus is very interesting.
Because like now everything is like almost copy paste, and we're not even commenting. We just let things happen, and it's all about economy and cheap buildings.
You're right.
Cheap way to produce building, because it's like we don't want to produce expensive buildings. We're gonna lose money. So like it's
excellent point.
He be like, I feel sad. I'm very sad about what's happening in Sweden, because like we are not talking so much about the beauty of the building or beauty of architecture. We're talking about material and sustainability and economy.
once here you had this Skönhetsråd, the beauty board. I don't know if it still exists, where these things were discussed. But there was a great book by an Italian, I think, urbanist architect. I can't remember his name, where he showed in a beautiful sequence of when you have this different slides, how generic European architecture is today. How everything is, you see, copy paste and similar, and the barcode city you can put in Oslo, it will pop up in Holland. It doesn't matter; it's always the same. So I think it's a question of that. And of course, as soon as you say beauty, you think, oh, maybe it's classical architecture, and that's not good. We're not going to talk about that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Interesting. So now this was like the first part of our talk. The next part is going to be about you're commenting the different concepts and so on. But before we move to the next part, two questions. Like, what should people from academia, like teaching and lecturing, stop doing? It's like advice for your colleagues.
Oh, that's a good one. What should they stop doing? Uh, I think that's the most difficult thing. I don't know if it's could answer your question, but it feels like a complement to it, or something encapsulated. They should stop believing in their well grounded, written in stone ideology paradigms in their heads. If you do not change your paradigm during your professional life, and we're not in theoretical physics, and even there you can see changes. We're not in chemistry or biological. We're not epidemiologists. It's a applied social science. It's a flux world. It's transformations everywhere. And if you do not are able to convert yourself from being a modernist to something else due to these factors, when you see that it's needed, it's going to be very difficult. So I think adaptability and thinking is important. They should not stick to their old ideas in the studio. If they do that, it's going to be very, very difficult. Yes, you will have always students asking for a school of thought. Sure, in MIT, there is a spirit of Kevin Lynch still. The master's program is still there after, 50 years. A Colin Rowe program exists in another school. Fumihiko Maki exists in Fox's school. Whatever. We don't have such things at KTH or Lund or Chalmers. We had, because we didn't really have chairs or strong professors that have left a legacy in that sense, designing that you say, well, they were very good architects and academics. So this is one of the things they shouldn't do, I think.
And what is the thing that they should start doing or keep doing?
They need to have, depending what the courses are and what the studios are, but absolute close connection to practice. And it's, of course, easy to say. That means not just bringing practitioners for a guest lecture or running the studio, but really, if possible, working in a real time project. If you can get students to involve, and of course we have presentations, and there's an ongoing, let's say, master plan done in this municipality, and then they present for the municipality, and then they, you know, take the A3, A1 or A2 posters down and send the DVD to them and all that. But I think if we can get them involved in a real way, that could be really good. Practice oriented is a must in our professions. Otherwise, I mean, as you say, then it's going to be like which is great, having an urban sociology, urban social geography course. So that's fine. That's needed, but I think we are predominantly a practice oriented discipline. And that's when I say urban planning and urban design.
And three takeaway messages to the students who wants to study urbanism.
The world is in transformation, so you need to learn to adapt to changing things in the environment. That means you have to have flexibility in urbanism thinking. Second one, you need to come prepared. You need to read during your programs, and this is not the advocation of theory, but there are so many good ideas, and all the ideas we have here are basically built on the shoulders of great men and women that have done it before. People like Alexander, Jane Jacobs, Rem Koolhaas. We're not inventing. There's very few inventions right now. Even Richard Florida's, creative class and all that. There's elements of other things inside, and all these great people acknowledge that. And number three is a takeaway would be: do not think you're going to build future cities That's going to come rarely as an opportunity on your boards.
You mean an entire city?
Entire city. If you're urbanist, that you're going to build a new entire city outside of Cairo, don't think it's going to land in your lap, or that you're going to build this architecture thing. There's very few, very fortunate individuals to do that, and maybe it's not even good to do it. Remember that you're going to be an important piece of the puzzle in the city building, and that's how it is. And it's as you say, Mustafa, you're a great ambassador of loving cities. I think you have to love cities if you're going to get into this. If you don't get into it.
Last question: is it too late for not young people to study urbanism? Let's say like I'm 40 years old, 55 years old, like working as a practitioner. Is it too late for me to like get a master or get back to academia?
Never too late. That's a brilliant question. This is where I think the shorter modules courses could come in handy in a way to offer you a specific diploma or certificate and see, is this for you? And or give you an introduction to take a master's. You're never too old to do it. We have had students which have been 15 to 20 years older that just, got an idea. I've done this. We even had a chemistry student, and then, she did some planning, but she wanted to do this. So it's never too late. But of course, there's also, personal things, how you combine it with the family life, with everything else, with your other jobs. But I think this is where the online thing might help so much, because it will give you a diversity. Sometimes very difficult, Mustafa, to get into a 2-year program and dedicate
Yeah,
yourself.
it's very long.
We had some of the senior people in, and they had some other things to do. But when you have an online, rather comfortable certificate course during the 6 weeks or couple, then it's not that bad.
Awesome. So thanks. And we move to the next episode.